My name is Catherine Page, and the documentary topic I'm doing is about the psychological impacts of injury on athletes, with a focus on ACL injuries. Injury has always been a part of sport and often becomes the reason why many athletes discontinue participating in sport. While many people think recovering from injury just entails the physical rehabilitation, many coaches are starting to emphasize their players' need to reach out to a sports psychologist. Researching psychological impacts of injury is important because the athletes that play these sports, especially professional and college level athletes, need to be fully recovered mentally as well as physically to deliver the sport product to the public. The sport industry revolves around the game itself and would be non-existent without the athletes that play them. An ACL tear is a ligament tear that occurs in your knee. It is a ligament that prevents your knee from sliding forward away from your tibia. This ligament is responsible for an athlete's ability to cut side to side, which is why ACL injuries are so prevalent in sports that are frequent in those agility movements. When an ACL is torn, many athletes hear a loud pop in their knee. Since about the ACL is torn in about 70% of all serious knee injuries, the psychological effect of this injury sets in as soon as the athlete hears that pop. The pre-injury stage is important because it offers a baseline reading of how the athlete was before the moment of impact. Coaches and other healthcare providers have something to go off of to judge whether or not an athlete is prepared to play again. The athletes themselves have to have an understanding that there is certain inherent risk associated with the sport and be mentally prepared for when an injury occurs. While there are physical preventive measures that can be taken to prevent an injury, not much research has been done to mentally prevent an athlete from going through the 5 stages of grief, which we'll talk about later. While preventative measures can be taken, there are uncontrollables that an athlete cannot account for that can cause injury. An example of an uncontrollable is the picture of an opponent hitting Tom Brady's knee. Once an injury is sustained, Sharon Malley, the head athletic trainer for Meredith College, stated that many athletes make up their mind right then and there to either push through and continue playing or decide they are done. If they decide to continue playing, there's a good chance they will go through the 5 stages of grief, and the first 2 stages, denial and anger, will appear immediately. It is essential for healthcare providers to address these concerns. ACL surgery and rehabilitation has a stigma that is one of the worst processes an athlete might have to go through in the sport world. Because of its well-known popularity, athletes that encounter an ACL tear are more likely to be depressed for a longer period of time as compared to other injuries. Brian Conley will talk about how physical therapists incorporate mental confidence boosters while physically rehabbing an ACL tear.
In the clinic, obviously, the mental side comes from us in the simple fact that when we rehab the patient, we have to reproduce exercises tailor-made to their sport. So then we reassure to them that here we go, this is how, this is what you're going to be doing in your sport, and your knee is proven, it's tested, and you're ready to roll. So from the mental aspect of our side, it's reproducing the exercises and the functional sporting activities so that way the patient feels mentally that they've gone through this during rehab and they know the ACL, the PCL, the MCL is going to hold up.
So building their confidence by doing moves that they already know is a great way.
The other 3 stages of grief, bargaining, depression, and acceptance, generally occur just before reconstructive surgery or during the months of rehab after the surgery. While at first athletes choose not to believe they tore their ACL or are angry that it even happened, there becomes an obvious change that the athlete mentally begins to bargain with themselves that if they do a specific rehab exercise, then progress will be made. These stages of grief may occur at any point in time, especially the depression stage. The last stage is when the athlete comes to terms with their injury and accepts what must be done if they want to play again. Athletes are going to get hurt, but as sport managers, we have to ensure they are getting the best care possible. One goal for colleges is to have a sports psychologist on hand for athletes to use at their disposal. A sports psychologist is key to ensure the athlete moves through the 5 stages of grief and reaches the acceptance stage. Hiring more staff to the athletic department may take some more financial backing from donors or the State Department, but it is worth it to see athletes return to play or even a normal life.